This is Tesla's brand new Cybertruck. And by now, you've probably already seen tons of videos online of different people creating crazy videos with this thing already. But the one thing that you probably haven't seen is any Tesla commercials or ads promoting this new Cybertruck. Companies like Ford, GMC, and Toyota spend millions of dollars on commercials, except for Tesla.
We're not spending money on advertising or endorsements, so anyone like buys our car, they just bought it because they like the car.
So since Tesla's probably not going to make a commercial for their new Cybertruck, then I'm going to have to make one for them. But there's just a few problems. First of all, I don't have a Cybertruck, and also I have a budget of $0. So since there's no way I'm going to be able to practically shoot a video of the Cybertruck, I'm going to have to make everything fully using CGI. This means I'm going to be using Blender and only free 3D assets to create literally everything. Now before I start, I'm going to need some sort of a plan. So step 1, obviously I'll need to create a replica of the Tesla Cybertruck. Step 2, I plan to have 4 different environments. I'm not sure what they'll be just yet, but we'll have to wait and see what I end up creating. Step 3, I'll need to create animations for the car as well as for the camera. Lastly, for step 4 is to create the final edit. So once I have all my animations rendered out, I'll then use After Effects to bring everything together to composite all of the footage and different effects to create the finished edit for the commercial. Alright, so like I said earlier, I'm going to need a 3D model of the Tesla Cybertruck. Now I can either try to model it, which honestly might be doable just because this thing already looks like it was modeled in 10 seconds, or I could just look online for a free model, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and try modeling this out. Even though I'm terrible at modeling, I think this might be possible. Okay, so I ended up actually spending almost an hour on this, and this is what I ended up creating. As you can tell, there is no way I'm going to be able to use this for the commercial, so I'm just going to have to go ahead and scrap this and go ahead and look online for a free 3D model. After looking online for just a few minutes, I actually found a pretty decent 3D model, and after downloading it and importing it into Blender, this thing already looks 100 times better than my own attempt at modeling this. There's just a few issues with the texturing and the scale of the model, but I think those should be pretty easy fixes. Alright, so after spending some time fixing up the textures and making it look as realistic and similar to the real life version, this is what I ended up creating. As you can tell, it's not exactly the same, like I'm missing the huge windshield wiper and the mirrors on the side of the car, but this should be totally fine enough for the 3D model. Now that I have this Cybertruck, we need to start building out the actual scenes. And for this first scene, I want to model out almost like a dark concrete garage. So to start out, I'm just going to model out a simple floor, wall, and ceiling. Next, I'll add a few different nodes for the concrete texture and mess around with it until I like how it looks. I'll also add in a few different lights to light up the scene. Now that that's all done, I can go ahead and start creating different camera animations, but I'm going to go ahead and skip most of this part because it's honestly not the most interesting thing. But after spending a few hours creating all the different camera animations and rendering everything out, I now have my first scene with all the renders complete. As you can see, this is already looking insane, and that was just only one of the renders. For the second scene, I wanted to create some kind of snowy mountain environment, but the thing is, I have like no experience creating realistic environments, and if you've ever tried using Blender before, you'd know that there isn't just some easy environment simulator or plugin that just randomly spawns in a snowy environment, so you literally have to model and texture almost everything. This means building pretty much everything from scratch, although I will be using some free presets and assets like trees, grass, and rocks, but you get the point. And since I'm not the most advanced Blender user, and I've only done a few things previously in Blender, I knew this was going to be a challenge. I found a few good reference images to help me out with dialing in the look for this scene. So I started out with creating the road and then moved on to creating the land, which so far was pretty simple, but obviously I still wanted to have some snowy mountains in the background. So I used this free add-on in Blender called Landscape, which actually helped me create different mountains, which saved me a lot of time. But little did I know that texturing these would be the most difficult thing ever. I literally had to follow like a 40-minute long tutorial just to texture these. But honestly, I think it was worth it because these turned out pretty sick. So after creating this insane texture for my mountains, adding in a few different elements to the ground, and adding in the Cybertruck, it's now time for the animations. I used a free add-on called Rig-A-Car to help with rigging the Cybertruck to create different animations. So once I had rigged and animated the Cybertruck, I then created a few different camera animations and spent a lot of time rendering them all out. Now for this third scene, I wanted to go for something totally different from the last one, so I thought that creating a forest environment with some type of road going through the middle of it could look super sick with the last scene that I just created. I started by creating a basic road and added some curves to it. I then went ahead and expanded the edges of the road to add some dirt and grass for the trees, but of course there was another problem. In order to expand the edge, I would need to select all these different edges along this line, and the fastest way to do that is by holding Alt and selecting, but after trying that multiple times, nothing happened. So the only option I had was to individually go ahead and select every single edge, which would obviously take way too long. But instead, I actually went ahead and called up a friend that actually knows what he's doing in Blender and hoped he would answer. Yo.
What's good?
Dude, so I'm trying to make like a road, but I want to select like all of these lines here.
Alt. Wait a minute. Here, wait. You know what might be the problem? Press A, and then press M. And merge by distance. Now try it, because they might have not been connected, the vertices between the two that direction. It's not even doing it.
You're so good. You're actually insane.
I got you.
Wait. Thankfully, he quickly knew exactly what was wrong, so I was able to continue with creating the scene. I then went ahead and added in a few different models like trees, grass, and rocks to make it feel a little bit more realistic. And with all of that out of the way, I was now able to animate the Cybertruck, as well as create a few different animations for the camera. And just so you know, this scene crashed my computer at least 100 times. All these different trees and grass made everything way slower, which means the render times were terrible. Even though I have a pretty decent computer, this was taking almost 5 minutes for each frame to render. But after spending way too much time on this scene and even more time rendering, I was finally able to get all the shots I needed. So at this point, I had almost all the shots I needed, but for this last scene, I wanted to incorporate something from Tesla's official website, and at the time of recording this, they actually had some super cool space-looking environment on their website, which could be perfect to use for this commercial. So using this image for reference, I started out by creating a basic floor and added a dark muddy rock texture that honestly looks pretty close to the original image. After that, I went ahead and added in a few different mountains using the landscape add-on again, and this time the texturing was pretty simple because these mountains were pretty much all black with a bit of rough texture. So after using a few different nodes, I was able to create a pretty realistic texture. Lastly, I went ahead and added back in the Cybertruck, and for this I wanted to create a seamless transition from the last scene. So what I actually did is just copy and paste the camera setup I had previously and just rendered it with this new environment. And I wasn't totally sure how this would turn out, but after seeing it come together, this was honestly one of my favorite shots. I guess that's one of the positives of using fully CGI to create a commercial, because to do this practically, it would almost be impossible without bumping the camera rig while moving locations or just getting everything to line up perfectly. But by using Blender, all I literally had to do was just hit copy and paste. After rendering out that animation, I went ahead and created a few more, which also turned out super sick. Now that I had all the footage I needed to complete this commercial, I brought everything into After Effects where I would do all the final compositing and add extra effects, transitions, and sound effects. Now the moment you've probably all been waiting for the most, or if you just wanted to skip to the end of the video to see the results anyway.
Skip. But when does this game get good?
Here is the final Tesla Cybertruck commercial. I'm actually so happy with how this all came out. This is by far the most time I've put into a YouTube video, and honestly any video like this before. But anyway, if you guys even made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future, then make sure to drop a like and subscribe to stay up to date. But with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.